Good evening and welcome to the Torah Bytes of the Young Israel Lawrence-Cedarhurst. What we're going to try to focus on this evening is trying to understand the nature of the celebration of this evening. Because if we understand what it is that we're celebrating, it enhances what we're trying to even accomplish. The Rambam tells us something very unique. What we are celebrating this evening is in fact the victory, the military victory, says the Rambam. That's the way he starts off in Hilchos Chanukah Perek Gimel. He tells us, and listen to the very unique language of the Rambam. When the high priests, the Hashmonaim, conquered the Greeks, Vahargum, and they killed them, Voishiu Yisrael miyadam, and saved Israel from their hands, Ve'midu melach min haKohanim, and they even established a king from among the priests, V'chazru malchus liYisrael, Yeser al Mosaim shana. The sovereignty, the kingship returned to Israel for more than 200 years, Ad HaChurban Hasheni, until the second destruction of the temple. Now, it is true that from the period of the destruction of the first temple, all the way to this point, there was never Jewish sovereignty. It was first the Babylonians, then the Persians, and then the Greeks. Even when we had a Beis Hamikdash, it was under their sovereignty and their mandate. That is true. And the Rambam is pointing out that essentially the celebration of tonight, the celebration of this time, is the return of sovereignty, the return of Jewish control over that area of land, over the state of Judah, of Israel, for those 200 years. But if you do a little bit of a historical survey, you'll notice there's something a little bit troubling. And that is as if those 200 years that the Rambam refers to, the reason why we're celebrating today, we're not exactly roseful and blissful years. If you think about it and you look at the history, the Gemara tells us that the end of the Hashmonaim dynasty was not a favorable time. There were people like Aristobulus, Hyrcanus, two warring factions within the Hashmonaim, to the extent that there was even a siege laid on the Beis Hamikdash, where the one group was inside, the other was on the outside. One of the groups, in fact, invaded the Roman Empire inwards to resolve that struggle. Included in the 200 years the Rambam is talking about is also the destruction of Herod, of Hurdus, of the Hashmonaim dynasty, and his control as a Roman mandate for a period of time. Yet the Rambam says that's a reason for celebration. And this is something to think about today especially, that the Rambam is talking about the celebration just because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the land, just because we had sovereignty on that land, even though it may not have been under the best leadership towards the end of those years. That's still a cause for celebration. And we have to think about the last 70 years, the gift that we've been given of Eretz Yisrael, and we think about it, it comes with many trials, with many tribulations, many elements which are actually not so pretty. But when we think about the Rambam tells us, Chanukah is the time we remind ourselves that we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu just for the very basic fact that we have that control. Wishing you a Chanukah worth celebrating, thinking about the land of Eretz Yisrael. A wonderful day.